I have a big old stack of books here to talk about. Let's go. Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today with my February wrap up. I read lots of epic fantasy and I'm so excited to talk with you about it. But as you know, before we get into the books, we will talk some numbers, starting with my reading stats. In the month of February, I finished a total of 6 books with a total of 2,591 pages. Again, a bit lower than my usual average of 3,000, but February has been as busy as January, so I didn't get to read as much as I wanted to, but I also read a lot of chunkers and a lot of slower books, so you know. Rating wise, I had 1 meh book, I had 2 like books, and 3 books that I loved. And from a genre perspective, I read 2 thrillers, 1 sci-fi fantasy mix type of thing, and then the rest all fantasy. One of the fantasy books was an ARC. I will talk about that as well. And then 4 of the books that I read were trade published books and 2 self-published. And then the new section in my monthly wrap up. The shelf control report, where we will look at the number of unread books that I have and if that number went up or down. And ideally, it goes down. Spoiler alert, in February it didn't. I finished January with 1,123 books. I bought 7, which one of those I read already. I splurged on a Kate Elliott book that I found on Penguin Books because that is the short story collection that I was really looking forward to. She talked about that on Nico's channel during their interview, and she said a couple of things that kind of got me excited, so I wanted to have that short story collection by her. Then there was a library sale where I got myself 4 books. One of those is what I read already, but they're a fun mix of historical fiction and thriller, and then 1 romance. And then 1 was a Kickstarter that I backed last year that arrived finally, and the other one was a giveaway that I won. Thanks Josh from Already Overbooked, by the way. I already received the book. I'm excited to get to it. So yeah, 7 books, not all. I should have skipped the library sale, to be honest. It was not a great library sale. I should have just skipped it, but at least I only paid $3 for those. I don't know. I removed 3 books out of my library and I read 4 books that are in my library. So if math is mathing, which it's a little bit weird, so the number is not 1-to-1 anyway. I ended up in February with 1,127 books in my unread library, which is more than January, but less than December. So at least we're still going down on a yearly average. Oh. All right, let's just move on and talk about the books that I actually read. Starting with the thrillers. My year-long plus 2 month of John Marr's read-along is coming to an end, or came to an end rather, in February, because I read the last 2 books that I haven't read yet, which one was You Killed Me First, which was the book that released last year, and then the other one is Dead in the Water, which is the book that released this year. This one was fantastic. This one, not at all. So let's talk about You Killed Me First. This starts off with a young woman waking up, kind of figuring out where she is at, not fully understanding what just happened, realizing her hands are tied, and then slowly realizing that there's smoke around her and that she is underneath a bonfire that was just set ablaze. And she receives a call, and after a short conversation, she basically asks, like, why did you do this? Why did you put me here into that bonfire? And he said, because you killed me first. And then, you know, you jump back into the past. You're in a cul-de-sac. You're following 3 of the families living in the cul-de-sac. And slowly, in typical John Marr's manner, learn what their history is, how they got there, and how they are connected or not. Very, very cool. I enjoyed this a lot. Same fast pace as with all the John Marr's books. Really cool story. A tad on the far-fetched side. But it was a lot of fun. It was he added some little interesting things here that are newish that we haven't seen in other books before, which is also why I liked it, because if you read kind of the same thing over and over again, it gets kind of boring. So yeah, this was very, very interesting. Dead in the Water whoa, that was, I don't know what happened here. So first of all, this is about a man who goes out swimming in the ocean with a friend, and he drowns because he is, he's a little bit scared of big waters, especially if he can't feel the ground, that kind of stuff, and a wave gets him, he drowns. And as he's drowning, his life passes in front of his eyes, and he remembers all the scenes, childhood stuff and friends and, whatever. But there's also one scene that kind of has him pause because he sees a young boy die. He survives it barely, like he gets pulled out of the water by his friend and he comes back to life. But this scene of the boy haunts him, and he wants to figure out who the boy is and what happened and all that kind of stuff. So he kills himself over and over and over again, and every time he kills himself, he gets a little bit more of the memory back. And slowly, as the book progresses, like, he gets his memory back and you figure out what's going on. This is so far down the far-fetched side. So many things are just not believable. It is very predictable, which is usually not a thing with John Marrs. Usually it takes me a while to figure out actually what's going on because he takes you down so many roads. But in Dead in the Water, they were all way obvious, I found. And yeah, I was glad when that book was over. So I did not enjoy that at all. As you can imagine, this is my married. But that means I read all 14 John Marrs books across sci-fi and his thrillers, and that also means the video that I'm super excited about for months now, I can finally record that. So hit the subscribe button if you're interested in seeing me rank all the John Marrs books all across sci-fi and thriller and talk about all of them, what I thought about them, if I think he's an author worth reading. I mean, I think that question has been answered if you've been following me for a while and watched some of my reviews or my year-end rating and all that fun stuff. So you probably know that I think he's an author worth reading. But which books are the good ones? Which books should you avoid? And which order should you read the books across sci-fi and thriller? How are they connected? All of that in a separate video. Let's jump into the fantasy category, and I lump the sci-fantasy into this category as well. And I want to start off with a series that I finished. By the way, I didn't mention that in my stats. I started 3 series and I finished 1. This one. I will not talk about much about it because that's book 4 in a series, and also I have a separate review already on my channel if you're interested in that. That is the Sanyare Chronicles by Megan Haskell, 4 books in the main series, and then there's one novella between book 3 and 4. And if you want to just give it a try, there's also a novella set before the whole series called Pixie Tamer, I believe, if you just want to see what it is all about. Very cool, fast-paced fantasy with not just fae, but also vampires, dragon horses, lots of action, lots of betrayal, really cool female main character that is not perfect at everything, which is something that I really appreciate, who has to struggle with big decisions, and you see kind of the fallout from the decisions that she makes across the series. This is the ending. So well done. So many cool things happened. There is a small storyline that is still open, so we'll see if there will maybe be a follow-up to the series eventually. This was such a fun read, and I really enjoyed my time with that one, like, immensely. Next up, the sci-fi fantasy read, which is actually a fall over from January, because that was our January backlist book club pick, Black Sun Rising by C.S. Friedman, which is book 1 in the Cold Fire trilogy. This was tricky. So first of all, Nico and I talked about it in our live at early February. I'll leave it down in the description so you can take a look at that. Well, we talked about the first 3 books that we read as part of the Backlist Book Club pick. This was one of them. The other one was Shirts of Honor. We ended up talking about a couple more of the books of the Vakorsikan saga. And then Kenneth Lee's Books of Paradise. We talked about that as well. So you can hear Nico's and my opinion on this book. Overall, I'm glad I read it because I think it has a really cool premise with, it's sci-fi, so it's set in the future. Humans disappeared from Earth. They went, they got on a ship and then fled from Earth and found a new planet to live on. And that planet has magic, uses magic. And over the years that they've been living on the planet now, they actually lost all their technology, all the knowledge about technology, and they are now more aligned with the magic that is natural to this planet. There's a bunch of conversation around, you know, the humans that got there versus the people that lived there before, and how they're dealing with humans basically taking over that planet. There's a bit of a weird love story going on, and there's a lot of commentary around vulnerability. Nico talked about that in his review on his channel, if you want to dive deeper into that. And after I watched his review, I saw it too. I didn't fully get it till that point, but after I watched his review, I saw that too, and it is very interesting. Unfortunately, it didn't wow me enough to want to continue with the series. So this is actually the trilogy. I have it on my shelf. You might be able to see that in the back there, that I will get rid of my shelves. I will not keep that one. You know, I read it and I was like, okay, yeah. But I don't want to really continue. I have not really an interest in following them around. Maybe at a later point, and then I can still get it from my library. I don't need to have the book on my shelf for that. I actually read book 1. I got myself a library copy and read it from that. So yeah, it was good. I'm glad I read it because it has been on my shelf for some time. It did some interesting things, but it is not the book for me, I don't think. And then the actual February Backlist Book Club pick is Sheepfarmer's Daughter by Elizabeth Moon, book 1 in the Deeds of Pax Sanyare series, where we follow Pax Sanyare, or Pax, who is a young sheep farmer's daughter who wants more out of her life. Her father has other plans, and he actually put down a dowry already for a random dude that she is supposed to marry. And shortly before the marriage, she decides, nope, I'm not dealing with this. I'll disappear and I'll join the army. Well, it's not really the army. It's the company of a duke. It's kind of a mercenary band for the duke. And we follow her as she joins it and up to like the first 3 years. That is book 1 of it. Incredibly plot driven, which caused some issues for me because I'm a character driven reader and I need character development. I need the why. I need to get into the head of a person, and you don't get really a lot of that in this book so far. It is just, you know, one thing after another, one journey after another, one battle after another. Lots of emotional things happening, which is why I would have loved even more if I would have gotten more into the head of Pax specifically. I struggled with that throughout the most part of the book, but towards the ending, we learned something about Pax that has me very interested, because now we're talking about a trope that I'm really excited about. I will not say what it is because it's a bit of a spoiler, but I'm now at the point where I'm ready to read book 2 because I want to know how it continues. So this is one I want to continue, absolutely. And also, I don't know why I still have my thing in here. I'm done. So yeah, this is a series I will continue, and I already read that book 2 is a bit more character driven. So we are continuing the journey with Pax, but we get a bit more the why of her and a bit more deeper dive into her character. So I hope that's true and it's not too deep plot driven. Anyway, other than that, heavy military focus. So Elizabeth Moon was in the military, if I read that correctly. So she's very experienced with how that would work. And those descriptions were actually really interesting. So she talks a lot about how camp life is while they're, you know, on a campaign, how battles work, how like the formations work and all that kind of stuff. And there were some fun moments in here, some really interesting moments. This is also a like book. It didn't wow me. I didn't hate it. It didn't wow me, but I'm definitely curious for book 2. And the last book that I read in the month of February, I didn't read them in that order. I'm talking in a random order right now. But the last book I want to talk about that I read also in February is Kai Esso's debut novel, Time Becomes Relevant, which is book 1 in the Shazzwick of Land series. There is currently a Kickstarter going on, still running till March 8th. If you end up watching this before, go check that out. This was incredible. I love this so much. So first of all, this is about Magnolia, who is half human, half elf. We start the book off with her being with her mother. You get to see a little bit of family life with her brothers and so on. You get to see a little bit of how the elves live, what their culture is. And then all of a sudden, there's an attack that is coming out of nowhere, stealing her mother. Magnolia herself stays hidden and quiet so she doesn't get taken as well. But because of that, it's a big evil that took her mother. Because of that, she has to go into hiding, and her human father is taking her to a more neutral territory where both of them can live under a false name. And then we fast forward to her teenager time, and we see that her father has become the political leader of the city that they're living in. She is big into politics as well. So we see a lot of political machinations. We see a lot of political backstabbing. She also has friends. One of them works at the university. So you see, just a lot of political and interpersonal connection and conflict and friendship, and a lot of other things. And it is so well done. I mean, I had so many moments where I was just, I really have a hard time putting this into words, what I feel about this book, but this has to be the best fantasy book that I've read in a long, long time. It is incredibly slow paced, so it took me nearly a month to actually read it. I started it back in January, so this is also one of those that moved into February. But at one point when I realized how slow paced it is, I actually read it slow on purpose to really absorb everything and to see everything. Because there's a lot of stuff going on from so many aspects. So the political aspect, there are some things looming on the horizon where you see the beginnings of in this book. So there is definitely going to be bigger conflict coming in book 2 and 3, I would assume, at least based on the setup. The relationships between her and her father, her and her kind of brother that she grew up with, her and Shazzwick of Land, who is an incredibly interesting character throughout the story. I don't want to spoil too much because that's kind of part of the fun of discovering all of that. And so many more things. Like, this debut is incredible and I will not stop raving about it. Yes, it's an arc that I received from the author, but I already backed the Kickstarter like at the whatever highest level that I could with the extra immersion package because I want this book on my shelves and I want to continue the story, and it is so good. Also, I have an interview with the author already on my channel, and we'll also put that down below if you want to hear more from the author herself. We had a lot of fun. It was a great conversation. We also did the cover reveal on my channel as well. So yeah, if you want to hear more from her about what some of her inspiration was and what some of her decisions was writing wise, this, yeah, is contender for best book of the year at this point already. It was so different in so many ways. Yeah, so good. I'm stop topping here, but so good. And then the last book that I just want to briefly mention is the book that I started reading in February, which is going to make Derry really, really happy. That is Assassin's Apprentice. Unfortunately, I didn't get far, just one chapter in, but if the writing style is any indication, I'm going to devour this book and love it. Like, the writing is fantastic. We're reading this as part of the Booktube Creators Guild. It's our first buddy read of our Booktube Creators Guild. If you were a booktuber and you want to talk, analytics and resources and just share experience and stories and ask questions about how do I run a booktube channel? Like, what are the latest things that you've seen? Hey, I have a question about how do you do this and this and that. I will put the link down in the description as well. You're welcome to join us. It's just a Discord channel, super low key. We are all very, very nice. But yeah, that's the first buddy read of the Booktube Creators Guild that we are doing. And I'm excited. All right, that was my February. How was your February? What did you read? What was your favorite book of the month? Let me know down in the comments. And then I hope you don't forget to like and subscribe. You know how that works. I appreciate you very much. And then I hope I see you with my next video. Have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.